Hi, I'm Stephen Bainborough. I am the director of the South Simcoe production of When the Autumn Moon is Bright for their 2019-2020 season. And I'm lucky enough to have with me the playwright, Mr. John Palla. Hi, John.
How lucky can you get, Stephen?
I tell you. John and I have known each other for a few years now, and when John submitted the play, he said it is a light-hearted look at... No, it's not. What did you say? You said
it's a parody and a comedy of terror.
Comedy of terrors. But you call it a light-hearted send-up. No, a loving send-up. Is that what it was?
An affectionate spoof,
An affectionate spoof. So tell me about parody. Tell me about what does that mean to me?
A parody is when you take a book or a movie, some work of art, and you tease it. You have fun with it. Say, unlike satire, where you kind of tear it up to make a point. Parody is really just good, clean fun, and it has no lofty objectives. It doesn't cleanse anything, I think, as someone once said.
Okay. Now, I would say that my first foray into that style would be Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
Remember, we grew up with Carol Burnett.
Oh, yeah.
And they were wonderful at poking fun in a light-hearted, loving way at all kinds of things. So how is Autumn Moon, or When the Autumn Moon is Bright, what are you parodying? What are we poking fun at?
Well, I have always loved old movies from the 1930s to the 1920s. I like silent movies. I like if it's older, I like it.
Right.
And I've always had a special love for horror movies ever since I was a kid. Back in the 1960s, there was quite a retrospective on horror movies.
Right.
And we saw a lot of comic books. We saw, there were TV shows like The Munsters and The Addams Family.
The Hilarious House of Frankenstein.
The Hilarious House of Frankenstein with Billy Van.
Yeah.
These were all tributes in humor to horror. Then there was that deathless song, The Monster Mash by Bobby Pickett, right? And which never goes away. And I just fell in love with all that stuff and building model kits based on all the old characters and things like that. Right. So I guess it was inevitable. One day my writing would cause me to want to use that as subject matter.
Right.
And so little by little, I started piecing together the plot points from a lot of those films. Because a lot of those films have the same plots. The monsters change, but the melody lingers on. And so anyway, it eventually got, I often say it got stitched together, like the Frankenstein monster, a little bit from here and there. Yeah. And soon I came up with this play. And even the title comes from The Wolf Man. Right. There's a famous line in it. Even a man who's pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Yes. It's a little tribute to.
Yeah, excellent.
To that.
Now, I've read this play, and it does that. We play with all those classic cliches, and so that's what we're going after for When the Autumn Moon is Bright, finding the comedy of it, but not going so far as to be crazy out of sorts. Right?
No, and we're not trying to tear them down in any way. This is truly a labor of love of these. I think we're teasing something we both really like.
Yes, I agree. We've done other parodies of melodramas, and we've done parodies of gangster movies and that sort of thing. When I say John has written lots of plays, and I have been lucky enough to be on stage with John, and
I've been lucky enough to have him in my plays.
Well, aren't you sweet? Here's a quarter.
Gee, the price has gone up since a few years ago. Quarters. It's nice, but it's a bit of an insult.
Anyway, so we,
forgive me. I used to be a waiter. A quarter never made me feel too good.
Well, actor, waiter, you know how it works, right?
Yeah, I sure do.
So, when did you write this particular parody?
I started. I think I started writing it probably when I was very young person in my early 20s.
Oh, wow.
And I never really expected I was going to do anything with it, so it just kind of got written generally while I was working on other pieces of work. And eventually I realized, gee, this has kind of evolved into something worth taking seriously.
Right.
Back in, let's see, when would that have been? 1997, maybe. You and I were both working for a theater company called Artemis Players.
In Bolton, right?
In Bolton, in a beautiful barn theater. And the artistic director, Mary Reynolds, was a friend of mine, and she asked me to take part as an actor, and she very generously said, would you like to include one of your plays in our first season? Well, naturally, I jumped at the chance, and she said, what do you have? And I right away thought of this one. And the barn theater was very big. It had, as you remember, it had marvelous...
it was a barn.
But it was laid out very nicely as a theater, too. It had
beautiful.
lots of space. And, of course, our play requires a rather large set. It looks like a haunted castle. Right?
For sure.
And I thought, gee, I'd love to put that in there. And Mary said, okay. And I thought, okay, don't argue. And let's give it a try. And so that's the first place we put it on. As you know, you were there when we did it. And it got a wonderful reaction.
It was great.
And that was the first time out. And it's since been tweaked here and there. You know, I've done a little rewriting on it. So.
One of the funniest things about that play, not that the play wasn't funny, but one of the funniest incidents that happened was that an actual bat, was in the barn and flew across at the exact perfect moment in that script.
People were so impressed with the effects. They said, where did you get the bat? And I said, I have no idea.
We trained that bat for weeks to fly at this particular moment.
I thought Equity was going to sue us when they found out we were using non-union people.
So the play has been done a couple times before. It's been done there in Bolton, and I think you did it at Black Horse.
Did it at Black Horse Theater a number of years ago, and they did a wonderful production. And I'm not just saying that because I directed it. It was the cast that made that what it was, and I was extremely happy with it. In fact, one of our actors from that show, Harry Levine, who had played Igor, the Hunchback.
That's right.
Well, now he's graduated to the Mad Doctor in this version of yours, where he will play Dr. Boris.
So now I'm going to ask you a question about being a writer and a director and an actor. And now you are the playwright of this, but you are neither acting nor directing this show. How's that different for you? Or is it?
It's a relief not to be directing it. And I'm glad you're doing it, because I think you have more of a handle on directing than I ever did. A writer has an opinion of what he's written.
Get another quarter.
You've got to have some else. You have anything in paper?
I might have paper. I don't know. Later.
I'm one of the few people that still spends paper money. But what was I saying? Well, I was just saying directing is not my forte, but one writes a thing and knows how they want to see it.
Sure.
So you often, let that be your guide when you direct.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the best way to direct. I think you need somebody with a more objective eye who can bring something else to it entirely.
Well, I hope I can do that.
You will. I've seen you direct slapstick. Very well. And
we've talked about this show numerous times. I've seen it a couple times, and so it's going to be fun. I hope to bring something new and fresh to it, and I think we've got some really fun ideas for this show. It's I call them Easter eggs. You drop in little things all the way through, which is fun for people to discover. All right, as we go through.
Well, I'm seeing that just from what I'm hearing about. I don't want to say what anything is because they have to be surprises.
Sure.
But I do like the way you're thinking.
Good.
And that's a good sign for a good show.
Oh, good. Well, we're really excited, very excited about doing the show. When the autumn moon is bright, November 7th, we begin at the South Simcoe Theater. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Stephen.
It's been a pleasure.
For me, too.
I won't put you on the spot.
Well, that's a little late for that.
What director doesn't do that?